I just want to welcome all of you here. Uh, we really have a very interesting uh, mix here, and I want to specially welcome Lalita Kumaramangalam ji, who has headed the National Commission for Women, and really very nice to have you after. We have PC Haldar ji also, Professor Sharadindu Mukherjee, member of the ICHR. For those of you who are familiar, we have these roundtables on a regular basis on some very current and relevant issues of the day, which has generated a lot of debate. Now, I think this is an issue which has, the issue that we would like to hear today is something which has generated a lot of debate and continues to do so. It has not ended. And when the Parliament reconvenes in the month of March, we shall again, our attention shall be drawn to it. Prime Minister in his reply to both the houses made specific reference to this, and especially in the Rajya Sabha he dwelt at length on the necessity of this step and why it's the demand of the age and the hour. So I think we have a very interesting panel here. Professor Syed Tanveer Nasreen, and I'll just read out the introduction, but she's been spearheading this movement on triple talaq in West Bengal in a big way. Besides that, she's an extremely grounded and rooted scholar of women issues. She's actually gone in and done a lot of study on the ground. And of course, we have Advocate Vikramjit Banerjee, who wears many hats. And for those of you who have heard him in the past, he has spoken extremely well and in depth about the entire Ram Janmabhoomi issue. He's very closely involved with it. And this is an issue which Vikramjit Banerjee, when the entire thing was being gradually was building up, it is an issue with which he has also sufficiently worked and also given his best thoughts. So I think it's a very good combination. And I'm sure the purpose of this is to better know the issues and to be able to take up our own positions on this. So Professor Syed Tanveer Nasreen is a professor of history and professor in charge, Department of Women's Studies, the University of Burdwan, India. It's very important that such discussions go out of the Luton zone. Delhi is not the preserve of wisdom. And therefore, we have to realize that there are large number of serious people who are doing work across the country on issues which are fundamental to our polity and to our lives and to our civilization. So I'm very happy. In the last 2 days, I've been constantly going into circles which are beyond Luton's. So we are very happy to, though the geographical location is that, yes, but the mindset is not that. She holds a PhD degree from JNU on the identity of Muslim women in India. It's a very interesting combination that she has. Professor Nasreen was an ICCR visiting scholar in the University of South Pacific, Fiji in 2012 and has widely traveled around the world to discuss the position and status of Muslim women in India. She has authored 3 and edited 5 books along with several articles in national and international journals on gender and identity of minority women. Her proficiency in Sanskrit language has led her also to interrogate the position of women in the Dharma Shastra, the legal text of ancient India, and compile a descriptive catalogue of Sanskrit Bangla manuscripts at Sripata Sri Khanda, India. In recent years, she has taken up activist role in addition to policy advocacy for the equal constitutional and human rights of Muslim women in India. She has spearheaded the movement against triple talaq in India, on which she will speak at the Australian National University. She is also a trained classical dancer and theatre enthusiast. So I think you have Sanskrit, you have JNU, you have Muslim women, you have Sanskrit text. It's, I think, a fantastic combination,
Formidable.
formidable combination. And without, further really saying all my uneloquent nonsense, I would like to hand over the floor to Professor Nasreen and to my dear friend Vikramjit Banerjee.
Thank you so much. Anand. Our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, this is a sentence from the famous Gettysburg speech by President Abraham Lincoln on November 19, 1863, which changed the narrative of the American history and marked the beginning of modern-day free democracy. In that famous 272-word Gettysburg Address, Lincoln had also underlined that the, I quote, "government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth." The Gettysburg Address has been described as a cornerstone in American history because of its sheer nature and faith in the ideals of equality and justice. In fact, this remarkable address by Abraham Lincoln, made at the Cemetery of the Soldiers, who died protecting the value and spirit of the American Constitution, has been rendered more important in history than the battle itself. That value and spirit, which led the American president to state, "all men are created equal," ending the system of slavery prevalent in the American society and charting a new roadmap for the African Americans living in the country. Why I began with a reference to the Gettysburg Address of President Lincoln is that I, as a student of history, found the same spirit and same determination in our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, when I heard him declaring from the Red Fort that Indian Muslim women should have the same rights and facilities that the Constitution of India guarantees to other sections of the population. With my very little sense of history and understanding of how the dynamics of gender equality operates in our country, I compare and equate Narendra Modi's Lal Killa speech with the Gettysburg Address of Abraham Lincoln, as both these landmark addresses serve as milestones in history, promising to usher in a new phase in the history of their respective countries, ensuring equality and justice for the human being above everything else. You might find my comparison a little weird or a bit too far-fetched, but I reaffirm my position that Narendra Modi's speech and the commitment of his government to liberate Indian Muslim women from the shackles of patriarchal oppressions in the name of religious custom is actually a process of liberating nearly 10 crore Indian Muslim women from a position of what I would call slavery. I can give you numerous examples to show Indian Muslim women suffer the status of virtual slavery in the name of instant triple talaq or the Muslim personal law. So much so that, let me just give you a few examples. Shaira Banu from Kashipur in Uttarakhand, the woman who first filed the writ, when we interviewed her, she was so apologetic at one point of time. She was actually the person who was spearheading the movement. But at one point in the interview, she said, "जानते हैं, मेरे पूरे खानदान में किसी का कभी तलाक नहीं हुआ है." So this is how Indian women, this is how Indian Muslim women, we are tutored to think by tradition. I can give you an example from Malda, where this poor woman had sent 20 rupees to her father's household, simple 20 rupees in the hands of her brother, to save the poorer paternal family. And when the lord of this household came back in the evening and discovered that his wife had sent 20 rupees to her paternal home, he drove this woman out saying, "Talaq, talaq, talaq." I can give you this instance from Birbhum, where again this village woman who had gone out of the home to buy a dozen of glass bangles before Eid, and because she had dared to step out of the house without the permission of her master, she was served an arbitrary triple talaq, 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 and asked to walk out of the home. And you have these numerous examples, I'm not going into all that, of how talaqs or Muslim divorces are served on speed post, on WhatsApp, on Skype, etc. These are more well-known examples, but examples are examples. Let us consider certain figures. Muslims comprise a little more than 20 crore in the 120 crore total population of India, and half of these are women. So 10 crore is a huge number, comprising a population larger than the total population of many European countries and greater than the cumulative population of the top 5 cities of the world. Imagine any statesman or a government elsewhere in the world trying to initiate a substantial progress in the lives of 10 crore people through social reforms. This would have then be considered as a phenomenon in social history. Narendra Modi undertook the same heroic or Herculean task of trying to free Indian Muslim women from the age-old tradition and customs. Triple Talaq is apparently a small word, but it carries with it very great implications of gender oppression and violence. It has been an open sword dangling over the heads of Muslim women, transforming their status to that of slaves under the Muslim patriarchy. Even where arbitrary triple talaq is not exercised, the very threat to which the women are subjected tantamounts to gross emotional violence for the wife, subjecting her life to perpetual insecurity and therefore no better than a slave in practice. And if we consider that emotional violence is a major component in the protection of women against domestic violence, this becomes even more significant. Those of us who have seen the Muslim society from inside know how these threats of arbitrary abandonment in the name of a religious custom drown the voices of Muslim women, strategically marginalizing them and pushing them farther into the secluded corners of the household, rendering them into social non-entities in the name of parda, so that they are finally excluded and peacefully forgotten by the rest of the society. Liberal historians like Ramachandra Guha have often, paradoxically, bitterly criticized the Modi government, but have praised Virat Kohli for his consistency and batting mettle in tough situations. Like Guha, many cricket analysts rank Virat Kohli higher than Sachin Tendulkar, the god of Indian cricket, for his consistency in the 22-year pitch. Now, I would like to apply the same logic, the same theory, and the same parameters in judging and evaluating the will and determination of this government in liberating Muslim women. Just after Tin Talaq came the suggestion of the Central Hajj Committee to allow Muslim women above 45 years to go for Hajj without a male guardian or mahram. The principal opposition party, Congress, has criticized the central government and its claim of giving this opportunity to Indian Muslim women for the first time. According to the Congress claim, it has been done in compliance with the reform initiated by the government of Saudi Arabia, and that the present government in India has no right to claim a pioneering role for this decision. If only we go back a few months and flip through the pages of the newspapers in October 2017, when the Central Hajj Committee first announced their recommendation that Indian Muslim women above 45 years of age and in groups of 4 would be permitted to travel for Hajj without mahram, you will see the initial resistance and hostility evoked from the quarters of Deoband and other Muslim clerics. They declared that this was anti-Islamic, anti-Sharia, and not permissible under any circumstances. The Congress was absolutely silent at that point of time. And did any Congress leader at that time oppose or condemn the approach of the Muslim orthodoxy regarding the Hajj Committee's decision? Did they utter any single word supporting the right of Muslim women to travel for Hajj without a male guardian? No. And how could they? The two senior ministers of the former UPA government, Kapil Sibal and Salman Khurshid, the two legal luminaries, had been defending the All India Muslim Personal Law Board only a few months ago. Kapil Sibal stood openly defending the All India Muslim Personal Law Board, an NGO which has gained considerable reputation or disrepute, I must say, in recent times for its regressive stand on the rights of Muslim women. Perhaps you would remember the points in the affidavit that was raised by the All India Muslim Personal Law Board against the arbitrary triple talaq. The 3 major points that they raised were, firstly, they said if talaq is a time-consuming process, the husband might get wary of the wife and then kill her. So it is for the physical security of the wife that an instant triple talaq is advisable. One. Second, that if the divorce of a Muslim woman is carried to a court of law, the woman will be defamed in public, and therefore this will lessen the chances of a remarriage. And thirdly, it is after all a male privilege, it is after all the male discretion to decide on divorce. So these were the three major points that were raised by the All India Muslim Personal Law Board in its initial affidavit. And this is the NGO that the legal luminaries were defending. Kapil Sibal stood openly defending the All India Muslim Personal Law Board, and All India Muslim Personal Law Board, as I said, has in recent times gained adequate disrepute for its regressive stand on the rights of Muslim women. Sibal had even defended triple talaq as a 1400-year-old custom and therefore deserving deepest veneration. Salman Khurshid, however, did not appear on behalf of the All India Muslim Personal Law Board, but acted as an amicus curiae on being asked by the Supreme Court. In his written submission before the Supreme Court, Khurshid is said to have opined triple talaq as one revocable talaq, but he did not say a word about it in public. But finally, he showed his true colors after the constitutional bench gave the historic verdict, terming triple talaq as unconstitutional on 22nd August 2017. The Congress leaders have attested to their displeasure on the verdict, as we also saw their reaction to the Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Marriage Bill after its introduction in the Parliament. We've seen examples of secular liberal Muslim politicians in India. One of the two I just mentioned, for instance, married to a Christian, a noted journalist from the English press, but ritually converted to Islam after marriage and made to abide by all the Sharia rules. The personal becomes political in the process, as such micro-narratives within the domestic space transform into larger macro-narratives of support for the orthodoxy and resistance to any change in favor of women. It was thus when Narendra Modi was consistent and determined to take the next step forward by allowing Muslim women to go for Hajj without mahram, the entire Congress leadership turned into a great band of silent actors without uttering a single word in favor of the Muslim women, and only trying to discredit the government of the applaud due to it for this momentous reform. I regard this right to travel for Hajj without mahram as a major step in the mobility of Muslim women, even though starting from a religious premise. Because we are talking about the future of Muslim women in India today, I consider this as the beginning of the mobility of Muslim women. And this is also likely to increase the self-esteem and confidence of these women. And the idea that it is possible to do something by themselves, be it a religious pilgrimage without male guardianship, will mold the future of Indian Muslim women very positively, I believe, in the days to come. And this has already shown very positive indications. 1,300 women have already applied for Hajj and are going for Hajj without male guardians, which was actually unthinkable in this traditionally conservative society. And in the first 1 month, the largest number of women applicants were from Kerala and West Bengal. So we can understand the mobility and the hope and the aspirations that such reforms are actually giving rise to within the society. As a student of history, I can always give references from the days of the freedom struggle of India to modern day parliamentary democracy, of how the Congress leadership had always surrendered to the pressure from the Muslim orthodoxy and patriarchy. It started from Gandhiji's endorsing of the Khilafat movement into the Indian freedom struggle, to Nehru's decision to continue with the discriminatory colonial Muslim personal law, the Shariat Application Act, Act 26 of 1937, vis-a-vis the newly drafted Constitution of India, which in its preamble ensured equality of status and of opportunity to all sections of the population. Let us not go so far back in history. I would like to take a flashback in the 1980s when Rajiv Gandhi was ruling with an absolute majority in the parliament and decided to overturn the Shah Bano verdict by introducing a new ordinance. What could have been more horrific for the Indian Muslim women than this? And coming to the point of maintenance, it is ironic and paradoxical that they are now raising the point that if the offender husband is imprisoned for 3 years as punishment for arbitrary triple talaq, how will he provide for the maintenance of his wife? This is the logic, this is the point that is being raised. Now give me one instance where a Muslim man in India has provided for the maintenance of his divorced wife, if he has provided it at all, beyond the compulsory period of waiting or iddat. This is because he is not required to provide for the maintenance of his family and for the maintenance of his divorced wife beyond the period of iddat by customary law. With great hope, I look forward to the future of women, future of Muslim women in India, who have been empowered by the Supreme Court verdict of the bench of Justices R. Banumati and M. Santhanagowda, which set an alimony benchmark for the first time, securing 25% of the ex-husband's net salary and ensuring it as alimony, and I quote, ensuring a dignified life for the ex-wife. So this, I believe, will be this is in fact a landmark judgment, and this, I believe, will be referred to in the future when we talk about the maintenance of divorced Muslim women, and this would be set as a precedent. As a Bollywood enthusiast, I often feel that the political leadership in our country, the Congress and others, love to see Indian Muslim women in the stereotypical role as portrayed in B.R. Chopra's legendary Nikah. Entrapped and enslaved by what is glorified as religious, and therefore would even be a sacrilege to think of changing it, Muslim women would remain the perpetual victim, iconically romanticized with the Dil ki arma asuon mein beh gaye, and that she can never wipe her overflowing tears and decide to rise up for herself, claiming her rights to an equal world. Otherwise, in the 15 years of Congress NCP rule in Maharashtra, have you ever heard that they are proposing any change in the patriarchal diktats in the Haji Ali Dargah? Why would Muslim women have to wait till a Devendra Fadnavis-led government came in Mumbai and Muslim women fought their battle in the Mumbai High Court to get their right to enter the holy shrine located on the rocks off the Worli seashore on 26 August 2016? The PIL, I understand, was filed in November 2014, but the public hostilities the activists encountered would have been fanned by any other political party set upon pleasing the Muslim orthodoxy. Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi had said Congress has proved its chronic anti-woman mindset by opposing every single move which liberates Muslim women and shapes their destiny in this world of Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Now even Sharad Pawar of the NCP in Maharashtra has been very vocally criticizing the Triple Talaq bill of late, you must have seen, and mobilizing public opinion against it with his eyes set on the Muslim vote bank. In January 2018, the government announced the withdrawal of Haj Subsidy from this year, following a 2012 Supreme Court order and in keeping with its stated philosophy of empowering minorities and not appeasing them. The Minister Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi stated that the government, which spent around rupees 500 crore on its last Haj subsidy bill, would like to see the money being used for educating girls. Now this again, when we are talking about the future of Muslim women in India, when we talk of from the Triple Talaq to the Haj subsidy, this would go a long way in the mainstreaming and empowering of Muslim women in India, and the social mobility, ensuring a social mobility for them, both horizontally from the villages, mobility from the villages to the towns and cities, as well as a vertical mobility, giving them a scope to the aspiring middle classes. Now, along with the middle and the upper middle classes, when we are talking of the future, I would also like to make 2 points regarding the steps taken for the empowerment of the lower middle and the lower sections of the Muslim women population. Now, towards the end, I would like to mention these 2 points aimed at empowering women in general and Muslim women in particular. One, the Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, the Micro Units Development and Refinance Agency Limited, which is active since April 8th, 2015, where no collaterals are required to avail the loan. So that would immensely benefit the Muslim women, and in fact is actually benefiting Muslim women. It just requires a little more sensitization in the rural areas. And the Nai Roshni scheme, the scheme for leadership development of minority women under the Ministry of Minority Affairs, which seeks to empower and instill confidence among minority women, and the goals being poverty reduction, economic growth, and the strengthening of civil society. The last point that I'd like to make is on the health. The health concerns of women in our country is a very serious issue, and in a community where women suffer from, a great number of women suffer from poverty and malnourishment related complications like osteoporosis, multiple pregnancies leading to cervical and ovarian cancer, along with taboos regarding the female body, which precludes the possibilities of being touched and examined by an unrelated male, albeit for medical reasons. There are infrastructural impediments, for instance, those related to sensitization and communication. But like the Ujala scheme that has immensely benefited the poor women, including Muslim women in our country, the medical cover of up to rupees 5 lakh to be given to 10 crore families, which is regarded as the, I quote, the world's largest government-funded healthcare program, Modi Care as it is being called, would also include Muslim women and is likely to initiate a sea change in the health scenario in rural India particularly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's very difficult to speak after Tanveer. She's so eloquent, and she put all the points right right there. So it's very difficult to add anything more. But I'll just sort of, when I came into this, I think I'll put forward what I think about it. Whether we like it or not, in many ways, we all have a past. Our society has a past. And the constitution which I perceive, which was largely drafted at the inspiration of creating a more equal society, was a break from that past. And all of us, there were radical breaks. There were provisions which brought in making untouchability unconstitutional. And the reason was when we formulated that constitution, we believed that you cannot undo your past, but you can make a better future. So to that extent, the constitution was, in many ways, we tried to start with the tabula rasa, but nonetheless, it wasn't possible. We tried to have a better future. And to that extent, I think Baba Saheb Ambedkar, who was deeply involved in the formulation of the Fundamental Rights chapter, was also very keen on having this complete overhaul of personal law. We all know that he, in the end, became extremely disappointed because he was not successful in making this overhaul complete, and it had to be done in a piecemeal manner, and then even he was not satisfied, nobody was satisfied with it. But in retrospect, over a period of 70 years, I think he was, as we all know about Baba Saheb Ambedkar, that he was far ahead of his times, and he was right. I think when we came into the modern world with the Constitution, we should have also at that point of time worked towards reframing personal laws to make it more equitable towards women and incorporating women's rights in all personal laws. With Hindu law and with other personal laws, there was a process which was proceeded and corrections were suitably made over a period of time. But with Muslim law, the excuse with the of tradition was always given. I think the worst was what happened during Shah Banu, which was unbelievable that it could happen, and which actually sort of indicated that religious orthodoxy could trump a seemingly secular government, which had its own spiral, I won't say not only in India, but all over the world. I think the two fundamental events which which act as a catalyst for Islamic orthodoxy, which we have now come across, was the Iranian Revolution and the Shah Banu judgment. And subsequently that, before that, all of us know that, and whoever is old enough or young enough, we know that we thought that in many ways religion in the public sphere was almost, we thought, would not exist. But once you let the cat out of the bag, it's very difficult to put it back, which had its great effect. And we changed the discourse all over the world, I would say. It's not that personal law has not been changed before. The British intervened, as Tanveer will say, I'm sure, bear me out, that variously in personal law, both in Hindu personal law and in Muslim personal law, when they were in charge, and large parts of the law as we know it today, both of Hindu law and Muslim law, has been predicated on British presumptions of equity and British presumptions of common law. So this is not new, and it could have been done at that point of time, but we sort of failed to do it. And so therefore this change now comes at a very opportune time. And the reason why I say opportune time, because globally all over the world we are coming across a period of time where there are voices which have started dissenting from this orthodoxy very clearly. There are two people whom I think are wonderful thinkers whom I read while I was in college, and I did my master's in law and religion, so I have have an idea. One was, I don't know if Tanveer will bear me out again, one is Abdul Karim Soros, who's an Iranian author, and the other is Abdullah An-Naim. And they both have very different takes. Abdullah An-Naim believes that tradition should be interpreted in a liberal manner to incorporate and ensure that rights of women, minorities, and of the modern world is accommodated. And Abdul Karim Soros, who's this great Iranian author who was participant of the Iranian Revolution, now lives in America, is of the view that the space of religious law should be reduced to the minimal, and the dominant should be secular law, should be fundamental rights, should be equal rights for women, and things of that sort. So in either case, it is my view, and this is that we are at an opportune time and a very important time, because what was the example in Shah Banu is where India went, the rest of the world followed. And it's been my experience, and I've been traveling across, especially on law and religion, is large parts of the Islamic world look towards India for guidance. And this is extremely unusual, but this is true. I remember meeting an Afghan minister, I remember meeting some Turkish lawyers, and they say largely on the question of the relation between of the state and religion, they look to India for guidance. They said, the Afghan minister very interestingly once commented, there were two universities whom we looked to. One was Al-Azhar and the other was Aligarh Muslim University. And he thought that Aligarh Muslim University was this modernist university which would bring modern values, etc., etc. And he's regretted what had happened to both. But we all know what happened to Afghanistan, and when the entire thing regressed. So he regretted that, and in that context, he narrated this entire story to me. So, and it all happened, in a subsequent events arising after Shah Banu. So I think Triple Talaq, the movement which came from Muslim women for the entire reformation of Triple Talaq, and which came from within the community, and which for once showed that women from within the community were able to take on the orthodoxy and stand up to it. I think that's profound, and I think this is bound to have not only repercussions in India, and not only empower women as a whole across the country, but also change the discourse of both of Islam in the world, as well as definitely from India. I can assure you, I've been to Jakarta, in Jakarta universities, again discussing on law and religion. There is a huge looking up to India. And I think this is a watershed bill, and more importantly, it is almost seems a culmination of a watershed movement, a movement which was run completely by very, very brave women from within the community at great cost to themselves, at great risk to themselves, and without the hoopla which goes in American feminist Muslim movement. So, I think when the world will be, and I'm sure will be a better place, I think we'll all be very thankful to people like Tanveer for doing what they have done. Thank you very much.
I'm sure.